Hello, my name is Mary, and today we're talking about the genetics behind blood types. So what they are, where they come from, and how we keep track of them. So we talk about genetics in terms of blood types because we get our blood type from our parents. So my dad's a type AB, and my mom's a type O, and that means I'm a type A. But what exactly do we mean by all this? So we use the terms A, B, and O to describe the kinds of proteins you have on the outside of your red blood cells. So if you have A proteins, we call you type A. If you have B proteins, we call you type B. Both proteins, you're AB. And if you don't have either of these proteins, we call you type O, just as kind of a shorthand for 0. Where do these proteins even come from? Well, proteins are made according to a series of instructions that we call your genetic code. This genetic code starts off with a long string of DNA that we package up super tightly into forming packages that we call chromosomes. You get 23 chromosomes from mom and 23 chromosomes from dad that together form 46 chromosomes in most of your cells. So each of these chromosomes has a different position that calls for a certain protein. We call this a gene. So the blood type protein position we would call the blood type protein gene. But the allele is what we call the actual protein called for on that gene. So an A protein would be come from an A allele, and a B protein would come from a B allele, but they would both be the same spot, so that would be the same gene. I like to think of it as chromosomes are like a street, with genes are kind of like the houses on the street, and then alleles are like the families that live inside of them. So what are the kind of alleles that we find in blood types? Well, this video is really focusing on the ABO blood types. So there's really 3 main types of alleles involved there. There's A allele, there's the B allele, and then there's the I allele. And the way that these all interact is how we determine the blood type. So how do alleles actually determine blood type? Well, it's important to note that it's actually the relationship between your mom's allele and your dad's allele that determines your blood type. So let's say you have one allele from each parent. They may or may not be the same. If you have both A alleles from mom and dad, then that means you definitely get type A. But let's say your mom was type O and only had I alleles to give, and your dad gave you an A allele, then that means you would be a type A even though you have one I allele. That's because the I is recessive to the A and kind of lets the A take charge. But if you have A and B alleles together, they're both codominant to each other. So both A and B would produce A and B proteins. So here's a list of other examples in various combinations. So I think the coolest part out of all of this is definitely the Punnett square, because you can use the Punnett square to, in my opinion, predict the future. More realistically, we use the Punnett square to keep track of alleles and then estimate the probability that a given child will have a specific blood type. So this Punnett square was made based off of my own family. My mom is an O blood type, and my dad is an AB blood type. If we think back to the previous slide, that means my mom can only have I alleles, and my dad only has an A allele and a B allele. If we have one allele from each parent, we can go and calculate each of the possibilities in the Punnett square like we have here. So in the middle, we see that there's 2 chances of an A blood type and 2 chances of a B blood type. And that plays out in reality. My blood type is an A, but both of my siblings have B blood types. It's important to note as a side comment that each kid has their own set of odds. So if my parents were to have 4 kids, it wouldn't be guaranteed that they'd all have 50% blood types, but that each child's chance of having an A or B blood type was 50%. Thank you guys so much for watching. Good luck. You've got this.